Thank you very much for joining us. Atomico have been really great friends of Startup Grind. We interviewed Carolina 1 year ago, one of your partners, and we've got a great history going back to 2, 3, 4 years ago. Let's talk about how investors, how VCs evaluate tech products. This conference is about technology. Yeah. We've got a lot of, how many of you are founders looking for investment? Raise your hands. Not a lot of people.
Wow,
I assume that everybody's rich
everybody's
already.
funded.
Everybody's funded.
Wow.
Then let's move on to the next topic. You, as an investor, red flags. What is a no-go for you as an investor at Atomico and also on your personal investments?
Yeah, so red flags. I mean, if the team isn't 100% dedicated to what they're doing, when I see an entrepreneur saying, well, yeah, I've got this, and then I'm doing this thing and that thing, that's a major, major red flag. Or that person from the founding team will join as soon as we've got the cash and all that. And you know, if you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I've been doing this VC stuff just for 2 years. You're all in or you're out, basically. So that, to me, is probably the main first red flag.
And how about people with the same profile? Sometimes like, oh, 3 great engineers from that university, 3 great coders, right?
Yeah.
Founding the same company. Is this something that you're looking also into a team, some more diversity?
So yeah, so diversity is very important. I think it's not just about educational background, but it's also diversity in terms of having, women founders is something that at Atomico, at least, we value and think is very important. We also realized that actually within our own partnerships, most of the partners were male partners. So if you look at the last 4 partner hires we've made, they're all women partners. So yes. We think diversity is super important. Also, the best entrepreneurs and the best founders, they will be very attentive to that. They will be very careful not to hire people that are just like them. And that's really hard to do because your tendency is always to hire someone that you relate to, that you're comfortable with. Some people start with friends and all that. And actually, that's a common mistake. You see, the best companies are very diverse people. I remember the first company I was part of, not as a founder, but as a founding team, was lastminute.com, which was one of the first kind of big startups. And the 2 main founders were Brent and Marta, and they were so different. Brent is someone that cannot tell you no. He's incapable of telling you no, and Marta can only tell you no.
So there's a salesperson saying yes to all the things, and then somebody in operations, right?
Exactly. So he was the CEO, and she was the COO, and they were really like a perfect match.
How about you are a different kind of investor because you are an entrepreneur yourselves.
Yeah.
So you've been in both sides of the table.
Yeah.
How do you?
There's a good blog called Both Sides of the Table.
What is that?
Right? There's a good blog
Mark
about
Suster.
it. Exactly.
One of my favorite blog authors on investment. I really recommend that blog. But how much does that impact in your decisions on how to invest in this company or that other one because you've been an entrepreneur yourself?
Yeah, so when I sold this last company, Republic Labs, and I kind of wanted, I've been doing, I did, 6 years online travel, 10 years online games. I needed to kind of have a slightly wider view of things. So VC sounded like a great place, and I had, many offers to become what we call an entrepreneur in residence, where you kind of stay in there and kind of learn and help the VC do that and all that. And what I realized is that a lot of VCs, they actually are quite disconnected from what the life of an entrepreneur really is. And that was kind of surprising to me. As always, as an entrepreneur, I probably wasn't the best at managing my board. I didn't really kind of know, I was struggling with the VCs who hadn't done it before. And I think that's something that's what attracted me to Atomico, because you had this kind of founder DNA within Atomico, which is quite different. So I think, but then on the other hand, when you're an entrepreneur, I think you underestimate what the VC does. You think, oh, I thought I was going to do my earn-out and be VC and, look at a lot of companies and relax.
And I'm the guy with the money.
And I'm the guy with the money and all that.
Come to me.
Come to me. This doesn't really work that way. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you've got a huge advantage. Yes, you've got all the stress. Yes, if it goes back, if something doesn't work, you're screwed and you go bankrupt and whatever. But you're the master of your own time. You control the time. Mm-hmm. When you're a VC, you have no control over your time. You don't know when the great startup is going to appear, right in the middle of August, and you're on the beach with your kids and your wife, and then you've got to get that deal done. You don't control that. It's a very different mindset.
Usually I would think that it's the other way around. When you're an entrepreneur, unless you're 100% bootstrapped, in which you can be the master of your own time, if you owe money to a VC, then they control your time, right? Isn't it like that? Or how do you feel about this, being an entrepreneur and an investor at the same time?
Come on. The best VCs don't want to invest in entrepreneurs who will let them be the boss. Mm-hmm. When you're a VC, you're not the boss. You're the investor. The founders are the bosses. The founders are the people who drive the company. The founders make the decisions. The VCs, if they're good, maybe they're going to help you not to screw up too much, and maybe they're not going to screw up your company. But at the end of the day, it's the entrepreneur who decides. It's the entrepreneurs who has to decide.
So what amount of freedom do you give the founders? Precisely because, Atomico for me has got a couple of really strong differentiation points. One of them being the founder DNA. The second one is you really care about the community, right? You've been releasing all these reports. You have great interaction with communities like Startup Grind or other entities at local level. So how does that impact in the companies that you have invested in, and what amount of freedom do you give them?
Well, we have this very strong belief that good companies can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
When Nicholas started Skype, everybody told him that he had to move to the Silicon Valley because it was impossible to do a $1 billion plus company from Europe, and all that. That really annoyed him. I was part of lastminute.com, and every week somebody was telling us, Expedia is going to buy you. You can't do a big company. We did end up selling to Travelocity afterwards, but you can't do a big company from Europe and all that. And maybe it's true, and I heard one of talks yesterday that maybe it was harder to do these big companies, from Europe, 10, 11 years ago. I don't think it's true anymore. I think really, the Barcelona ecosystem, through initiatives that you're doing here, the Madrid ecosystem are really strong. We have this kind of, the State of European Tech report that we release every year with the conference Slush. It is really showing that Europe has more developers than the US. We're really kind of a unique position. So if you look at some of our best investments, one of our best investments is a company called Gympass that started in Brazil.
Right.
And that's kind of taking over Europe. So we think it's super, super important to basically help the ecosystem grow and basically do better, because you need that for the great startups to come up. You need the entrepreneurs to meet each other, to go to events like this, to meet VCs, to have discussions. You don't need to be raising to be talking with a VC. There's lots of other ways where I love meeting other entrepreneurs and kind of having discussions way before they even thinking about raising, because being a former entrepreneur, I've got maybe insights that could be helpful to them, and vice versa.
So it's a long process, because sometimes you start talking to companies in which you see a lot of potential, but that investment might not happen in a couple years, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, you need to keep up with the technology changes and be up to date and be sort of an expert in the trends that are coming, and that's why we're talking tech about here, right? So how do you do this at Atomico? How do you keep up with all the blockchain, VR, AR, AI, machine learning, all of that? So how do you keep that knowledge inside the company?
So let's take it to like the core of what you want to talk about,
Yes.
Tech investment, how
Tech
VCs
investment.
do tech investment. So I don't know how all the VCs do it. The way we do it is, so first of all, when we look at like a field, let's take AI, for example. So we won't just start blindly seeing companies and doing a kind of a beauty show about which company we think is more interesting. What we do is we start kind of writing what we call an investment thesis. So we'll basically do a lot of research about the field. We'll meet kind of who are the experts in the field, the best entrepreneurs, the best researchers and all that, and build kind of an investment thesis that we'll discuss internally. Also, we will try to have someone on the team that is a true expert. So for example, in AI, we have one of our partners is Siraj Khalik. So Siraj Khalik was the CTO of Climate Corp, which was an AI agri-tech company. We also have Steve Crossan. So Steve Crossan was a head of product at DeepMind. So we have some really good experts. So for example, and then once we've got that thesis, what we will do, so maybe there's a great AI company here in Barcelona, and maybe I'm the partner at Atomico that they will meet. Well, luckily for you, I'm not the partner at Atomico that you'll have to deal with long term, because I don't have enough knowledge to be useful to you in AI. So what we'll do very quickly is I'll pull in Siraj, or I'll pull in Steve, and make sure that kind of they're the ones that really kind of are on the deal team assessing that deal, making sure we get the right decisions. And then once actually if we do make the investment, I won't be the one taking a seat on the board. The ones taking a seat on the board will be the ones who actually have the expertise. In some fields, we have the experts. In some fields, we don't have the experts. If we don't have the experts, we look for them.
And how about the presentation? Let's say you meet one of these 4 poor people that are raising investment. They want your money right now, right? What is that?
They're not poor people. I mean, if
broke founders, let's call it like that.
If you're super ambitious and you want to build something really, really, really big, likelihood is you're going to have to raise funds.
Exactly.
And that's
what are you looking
level
for
ambitious.
here? Like, what would be your first questions? How would you see, like, this is a good tech product or it's not? What's the first thing you notice?
So when we do tech investments, I think first of all, we do 2 types of investments. About 10 to 15% of our fund, which is a 750 million fund, so it's a big fund, is what we call moonshots. So it's things where we actually might come in quite early, even before there's a product, which kind of goes around our Series A and beyond philosophy. An example of that is Lilium. Lilium is a vertical takeoff, electrical flying plane. Okay, 300 kilometers autonomy. In 5 years, 6 years time, 5 years time, if everything goes well, you'll order Lilium just like you order a Uber. Great. Of course, when Daniel came in to pitch his vision to us, he didn't have a prototype. Now he has a prototype, and he's done and Tencent has put 80 million after we put 10 million, but he had nothing. Another example like that is GraphCore. GraphCore is an AI chip. When the team came to see us and they say, hey, we think that the chips right now are not adapted to AI, and we can design an AI made for AI chip that is 100 times more efficient than what NVIDIA can do with their 3D graphics cards. We're like, it doesn't have a product. Yeah. So these are what we call moonshots. And moonshots, they're based on one very simple thing, the team. The team. We researched like mad, the team. And then, of course, what problem are you trying to solve? And we love problems when people are solving problems that we think will make the world a better place. So we really like that, because we think that if you've got a moonshot and that has a very strong purpose that people can adapt to, that they can really get behind, and that you've got the team for it, then that's a huge company. You're solving a huge problem. You can build a huge company. So that's one that we look at. And then there's companies that are more advanced. There are Series A's and beyond. They've proven some traction, and they're doing well. And then we look, of course, at the team, but we also look at KPIs. It's a much more kind of different type of decision. And then you can pull in the expertise. You can check the technology. It's curiously enough, the moonshots are easier investments.
I was going to say, so these ones you invest purely out of a PowerPoint presentation or something like that? It's still a thing? Or, because you said most of them, they don't have a prototype because it's very expensive to build it, right? So you research a team, but they got to show you something, right?
No, they'll have at least simulations.
Okay, they have simulations.
Yeah, you'll have. So, for example, for Lilium, there was actually simulations of, based on the schematics and all that, of how, it is possible to have a vertical takeoff, electrically powered aircraft. And 2 years afterwards, there was a prototype flying, and it was working. So
that's fantastic. How about the deck? Let's talk about this. There's a common consensus on you should follow this, start with the team, then financials, then what's the mission, exit strategy, and all of that. What's your take on this, and specifically for tech products? Yeah, because technologies we like to write a lot, and we like to explain these super over-engineered solutions, right?
Yeah.
What's your advice there?
I think it really depends on the founder.
Yeah.
I think do what works for you. Some founders, they're showmen. They'll be incredible presenting and all that, and you will leave and you're like, wow, that was amazing. And some founders just aren't, but they're just very, very strong, right? Yeah. So my recommendation, if you're a great showman, actually lower the tone a little bit, because that could put off a few investors.
Exactly.
And if you're kind of the other kind of founder, which is very kind of, quiet and all that, then make sure that you start with a bang so that we understand exactly, so that you grab our attention early on. I think you always should start with the problem you're solving and why you're the right team and the right person to solve that problem, and why you have a passion for that problem. Why there's something that just is keeping you at night and you can't sleep because that problem needs solving. And I think if you start with that and you're able to communicate that in the first 30 seconds, and it's a big problem, which means a big opportunity, then we'll listen.
Because I'm seeing also a lot of deals in which people are, really strong founders with a technical background, and then they prepare this deck with lots of slides concentrating on the technology. And investors, for the most part, they're not super well known for being great technologists, right? So they have an understanding of the technology, but it's like, I don't understand the difference between Node.js and Python, right? Or why am I going to use blockchain here, and 6 or 7 slides explaining the process on the technical. So is over-engineering also like a red flag for you guys, or?
So we see a lot of those for blockchain startups and blockchain pitches, because blockchain founders tend to be very technical, at least the good ones.
Yes.
And then you've got a few not so good ones.
We'll talk about this.
And it is hard, because they do this whole big technical thing, and I personally, 90% of the time, I haven't understood anything. Yeah. So that's tough. But luckily for us, we have some people in the partnership that are more tech-oriented than I am, and then that actually understand it. But I think it depends on what stage of the process you are. If you are, and also I think different VC companies work in different ways. The way we work is usually this initial intro where you meet maybe one partner or one associate or one principal of the firm, and your interest there is to understand if that firm is right for you, because it goes both ways. Is that VC firm right for me? So you should ask that person you're meeting questions about the fund and how they invest and what they do. And I think so there's a bit of that. And then basically explain to him why you're interested, why you make sure you've made your research about the fund. Many times, less and less, but many times, there's some entrepreneurs who pitch me, and it's just completely the wrong thing for Atomico. So I tell them, listen, I can introduce you to other funds that would be interesting for you. But so make your homework, pitch the right person in the fund, and just be very concise. And then when you've got them in, send a very simple deck, very basic deck, something they can share internally. Because VCs, they have one problem: they have very little time, very little time. So make whoever's your champion's life easy by sending him something he can share easily to get some buy-in, so he can build a deal team. He can get some interest internally around what you're doing. At that point, if you've got his attention there, normally he will set up a call or a meeting or something like that, where it's not really you're not really doing the full founder pitch, but your objective there is to get other people within the VC firm, not just your main contact, interested. Kind of like, oh, this is what he's doing is really interesting. So I think here you focus on the problem and why you're the best team as much as possible. And then you start going into details about why the tech is much better than that in the due diligence process. Once really the VC is kind of decided, okay, I want to invest time in this, I want to look into it, and then during the DD time, they will go deep on the tech.
I wanted to ask, kind of like to wrap this up, as you're based in Madrid, Atomico is doing a great job Europe-wide, but what do we have to do in the Barcelona startup ecosystem to bring the attention of Atomico and other VCs, other international VCs?
You already have. I'm here.
Yeah, well, for now, you're based in Madrid. What will it take for you to relocate to Barcelona?
Oh, I'd love to live in Barcelona. I love sailing. I mean, it'd be great to live in Barcelona.
You cannot sail in Madrid that very much, right?
Yeah, it's not very good for sailing in Madrid. No. To be honest, I only spend a third of my time in Madrid.
All right.
2/3 of my time are outside. And, I'm seeing really interesting companies coming out of the Barcelona ecosystem. Yesterday I came to see one. This morning, thanks to you, I met two other really interesting founding teams. I think you're doing the right things. You have to do these kind of gatherings, and then, VCs. We're not much smarter than anyone else. Sometimes we're a bit like sheep. If we see a big success in Barcelona, all of a sudden everybody's going to start coming to Barcelona and saying, "What's happening?" Right now, it's kind of happening in Paris. You've had lots of success stories in Paris. And every VC I know keeps asking me for introductions to the French startup ecosystem because I'm French, and everybody wants to do investments in Paris. So you're doing well.
Last question, and a really, really quick one. I asked this early in the day to Durash from Shazam, because he's a founder and he's an investor. Would you have invested in your own company?
So the real reason I joined Atomico was because I would not have invested in my own startup.
That's great. So 2 out of 2, right?
Yeah, and so I wanted to understand much better how VCs take decisions, how the decision process works, and how can you calibrate what you're doing as an entrepreneur and your ambitions in a way where you can build massive companies that get VCs excited. Because if the VCs are not excited by what you're doing, by your vision and all that, it's going to be very hard for you to get the best ones. That's why copycats have such a hard time, raising from tier 1 VCs. So I wanted to really understand that side.
Great. Thank you very much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Alexis.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay.